What's good, everybody? It is a very late edition of Mazique Speaks / Ask FP. It's really just Mazique Speaks, but I'm noticing on Twitter there's a lot of confusion, or a little bit of confusion, about what's going on with Ask FP and Mazique Speaks. So I'm hoping that anybody that is unclear is actually going to be getting a look at this particular video. I don't expect a ton of people, or even as many as I normally would have for Mazique Speaks, because of how late it is. So I'm hoping that anyone that is interested will actually get a look at this maybe tomorrow. But Ask FP is still going strong. It's just a part of Mazique Speaks. It's the first aspect of Mazique Speaks. And as a matter of fact, as it stands, I haven't even expanded the Mazique Speaks aspect as much as I originally planned. Something I still want to do. I just haven't done it yet. But to explain why this particular episode is so late, I tweeted a little bit earlier today that I had to take care of some family business. So that was one thing. Then between just working period, I was working on the roster still. Like I mentioned during Junior and I stream yesterday, I think that was, or Monday, I'm past the part where I was when the file got corrupted. So that's a good thing. So now everything pretty much that I'm doing is new. So I'm happy about that. And also I just posted a article on Forbes. What if Jinder Mahal actually wins the WWE Championship? It's crazy that he's the #1 contender. I got a little, you ever been drinking some water and it like goes down the wrong way? That just happened to me. So it's crazy. The water is what messed me up, but I'm drinking more water to fix it, which is crazy. But that's what I'm doing. So, all right, let's jump into the Ask FP, which I got a few questions here, and there's a few things I'm gonna expound on some stuff. So we're gonna go into Mazique Speaks like within some of the, answering some of these questions. So you guys let's take a look at this. All right, first question comes from Jared Young, and he says, has Whitaker won you over yet? Now, you guys, I'm gonna tell y'all the truth. This, you know what Jared's doing. Jared's taunting me, right? That's what he's doing, because he already knows, right, that I told him that I was not like the big believer in Whitaker, Robert Whitaker, UFC, UFC fighter. I wasn't, I was just not a big fan. He's a middleweight contender. He was taking on Jacare Souza at UFC on Fox 24 this past Saturday. And I flat told him, man, I thought Jacare was going to take him down and turn him into a pretzel on the ground. Well, that didn't happen. Jared Young was correct. Robert Whitaker handled Jacare, stops him, actually. And I must say, yes, I was very impressed with what I saw from Whitaker. For some reason, to me, he usually looks a little sloppy. Even on the feet. And I know he's got some pretty heavy hands, but he just looks a little sloppy to me at times. But he did not look sloppy against Jacare. Jacare is, for the most part, a one-trick pony. He is a take-you-down type of guy. He is absolutely one of the best, still one of the best in the world on the ground. The only person that I can see who, to me, is on his level on the ground is Damian Maia. But Jacare is a little bit better athlete than Damian Maia. He's definitely a little stronger. But he was too slow for Whitaker on the feet, and Whitaker really established himself quite a bit by stopping the takedowns and staying away from those problematic situations on the ground. And he made it a stand-up fight, and Jacare couldn't handle him. And it was a big-time win. And yeah, I'd have to say you are correct, Jared. I am now forced to be a believer in Robert Whitaker. He did his thing. I mean, it's nothing else can be said. All right, next question comes from Weston Flores, and he says, "Who do you think, or do you think LeBron could do what MJ couldn't and be a decent baseball player. No. I mean, I don't know why we would think that he could be. I mean, LeBron doesn't have any type of high-level baseball, interest. And I know Jordan didn't either, but, the same way Mike's whole thing was coming out of the blue, that would be really coming out of the blue for LeBron. And, the natural question with LeBron is always about him as a football player, because he was a highly rated football player in high school. And I truly 100% believe that LeBron could be an elite level tight end and an elite level wide receiver in the NFL if he had chosen to do that. Now, I'm not going to say he can walk off the basketball court right now and go to that. No, he would be behind the curve. Even as great a physical athlete as he is, he'd be behind the curve because he hasn't played professional football on that level. But had he made that his number one coming out of high school, or even not even, because he stopped playing. I want to say he stopped playing junior year in high school. But if he had played senior year in high school and said, I'm going to play football, there's no doubt in my mind, no question in my mind, he would be an elite level tight end or an elite level wide receiver. He's a freak. I mean, he's a freak of nature. He is a focused athlete that is very much into conditioning. And that type of athlete that he is, there's nobody that has ever played the game in NFL with his combination of size and athleticism. We're talking about a 6'8", 260-pound pass catcher. That's just, we marvel at the kind of athlete, and the matchup issues that Rob Gronkowski creates. Excuse me. And we even talk about and wonder what's going to happen when O.J. Howard comes from Alabama and the problems that he could potentially create for teams to defend. But if you have a guy that's 6'8" with a 40-inch vertical and 260 pounds, and he knows how to play football, and which is what you would probably be able to say about LeBron at that point, man, that's something else. And obviously the being acclimated to the sport and the toughness and the collisions and all that sort of thing. Obviously that's a factor, but we're assuming that all of that is there just physically. Yeah, man, he'd be something else. But baseball, I don't even think we have enough information about him as a baseball player to wonder, about him, being that or whatever. So, all right, our next question comes from Stephanie Elliott. How you doing, Steph? Appreciate it. All of the ladies that come through. She says, who do you think will win the MVP? As you can see, I've gone back to questions of the week, and that is absolutely the question of the week. I am going to go into this a little bit, but not too crazy. And the main reason why is because I'm going to start, and I talked about this a little bit, but when I do an article that I'm kind of like giving my opinion as somewhat of a rant or whatever, I feel like I'm going to probably go ahead and start sharing those on a regular basis on YouTube. I'll put together some sort of little, basic video presentation, and I'll go over or even read my article. A lot of times when I read my article, I'm able to present it as an oratory piece. So I like kind of doing that. It makes me feel Paul Robeson-ish. Google it up. So yeah, I think I'm probably gonna do that. So, but I wrote a piece about Russell Westbrook already. So I'm gonna go into it. I'm not gonna go into it heavy. I am gonna answer who I think is the MVP. I think, well, first, before I say that, I have mentioned to you guys before, I believe that there should be two different awards: a most outstanding player and then a most valuable player. In my opinion, the most outstanding player has been the same guy for the past 10 years. And this guy I just got through talking about, LeBron. LeBron's the best player in the world, all things considered. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the most valuable player every year. This year, I don't think LeBron's the most valuable player. I think he's close, but I don't think he is. But I also don't think that Russell Westbrook is. I personally would have to go with James Harden. James Harden's, we talk about averaging triple doubles, but James Harden only missed averaging the triple double by 2 rebounds. You know, on top of that, his team won far more games than the Thunder. And I'd have to do that. And we're not even basing it on the playoffs, because the regular season this is only supposed to be a regular season award, and that's when the votes are supposed to be put in. So we're not even talking about the fact that Harden's team is up 2-0 on Russell Westbrook's team right now. But I will say this, and I tweeted this a little earlier. Man, Russell Westbrook shot 39% from the field tonight in the Thunder's 4-point loss, and he took 43 shots. 43 shots, bruh. And I think he was 4 for 18 in the fourth quarter. Man, come on. Come on, man. That's a lot of shots, bruh. And even if you're not the point guard, that's a lot of shots. But if you are the point guard and you took 18 shots in a quarter, 43 in a game, no, man. And I'm gonna tell you something, man. I blame the Thunder coaches. Somebody has to put their foot down and coach this guy and tell this guy, hey, man, I understand you are a dynamic talent, and I understand that part of what makes you great is allowing you to just go. I get it. But bruh, you have to run an offense. And these guys do not run an offense, man. How many times do you see Russell Westbrook come up the court and just move the ball, not to get an assist? Because see, that's what some people say. How are you talking about him saying he doesn't pass, or implying that he doesn't pass, and he averages over 10 assists a game? There's a difference between passing to move the ball to initiate the running of an offense and passing the ball simply to get an assist. You very rarely, if ever, seen Russell Westbrook come up the floor, move the ball left or right. He then move around. The ball moves around, touches a lot of different guys' hands. Maybe he ends up back with it or not. Maybe he doesn't, depending on what that set calls for, depending on if someone gets the ball and decides to attack the basket from their position, whatever. But you just don't see that with this offense. The ball stops with Russell, an insane amount of times. So it's James Harden for me personally. That's just what it is. All right, our next question comes from Simon Torvey. Wait a minute. We got to get rid of this one. I don't know why that's not going away. Let's get it going. All right, here. Maybe it'll go. I'm kind of weird. I kind of like when I'm used to doing something a certain way, I want it to work that way continually, but I'm getting some pushback here. All right, this next question comes from Simon Torvey Sunland, and let's pull him up here. And he says, what do you think of the NBA giving franchise players major incentives to stay with their teams? Well, I'm not sure of the way you're wording that, sir. Simon, are you saying that what is like this as an idea, or what do I think about the fact that it already exists? Because this already actually exists. That's why players have it's set up where if you've been with your team for a certain amount of time, you when you become a free agent, the biggest contract that you can sign is the one that will keep you with your original team. So that incentive is actually already in place. And I don't have a problem with that, because one of the things for fans that becomes cool is being able to identify with the same superstars over an extended period of time. So we like that. We like the fact that, you know, Derrick Rose spends this amount of time in Chicago, at least I did. You know, Kobe's a Laker. You know, LeBron was a Cav until he was a Heat member of the Heat for a minute, but then back at the Cav. We like that, you know. So I think that that's a good thing for the NBA. But as we've also seen, it's not the end all be all. Sometimes people just move; they still leave. So it's just one of those things. So yeah, I mean, it can go either way. We got a little bit of noise in the background. We have to let people know that they don't know. They just start talking. We're in the middle of it and they start talking. It's okay. All right, let's go to the next question. All right, let's see. All right, our next question comes from Simon Torvey Sunland, and he says, if you got the GM gig for the Knicks, which changes would you make? Well, honestly, obviously the change that I would make is pretty much the same change that it looks like they're going to make, which doesn't mean that they're doing a good job. But the first change that I would make, you got to move Carmelo. I mean, he is obviously being paid a king's ransom. He doesn't want to be there anymore. At least he doesn't want to be under that particular ownership group. And since the ownership group and the management group isn't changing, I'm pretty sure he probably about wants to leave. It's a huge distraction. The team isn't going anywhere. Whatever you could get from Melo is going to be going to be probably an addition by subtraction type of a thing. I'd also let Derrick Rose go. I would, and you guys know how much I love Derrick Rose, but I let Derrick Rose go. I wouldn't try to re-sign him. Derrick Rose, at this point in his career, is best suited as a six-man. If you give Derrick Rose an opportunity to play 25, 28 minutes a night, come off the bench and just go. Don't worry about necessarily creating for teammates. Just go get buckets. If you allow him to play in that way, I think he could probably win Sixth Man of the Year. I think he could be a huge asset for a team as just instant offense off the bench. I think a team like Cleveland that would be phenomenal for them. I think even a team like Oklahoma City, with him coming off the bench, that would be phenomenal for them. It's a lot of contenders whose bench potentially needs a scoring punch. And I know that's something that would be very difficult for a guy like Derrick Rose to accept at 28, 29 years old, and you won an MVP, and you know you were one of the best players in the NBA at one point. But now I think that's where he is. He is still a phenomenal scorer. He can still get to the bucket and put points up in bunches, but he cannot carry a starter's workload and not get hurt. I just don't. I mean, man, this is a lot of injuries, man. It's a lot of injuries piling up. So something has to be done to conserve him, and preserve him, I should say. And I think that's probably the best way to go. All right, let's see what we got next. We got another question from Simon Torvey Sunland, and he asked, will ISO Joe Johnson make the Hall of Fame? Living in the Hall of Fame? No, he might not. You could make a case that he should be. You really could make a case. I mean, over 20,000 points scored. The biggest thing that you could potentially hold him back on is that he hasn't had the playoff success. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, well, what about Tracy McGrady? See, putting Tracy McGrady in the Hall of Fame really is going to create quite a few dilemmas for other players in the future, because putting McGrady in the Hall of Fame basically says that your regular season greatness is enough to basically make up for the fact that you didn't lead any team to any significant postseason success. And that's a big deal because most everyone else in the Hall of Fame at least has that, Dominique Wilkins was never they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, but he never made the finals, anything like that. He didn't lead the Atlanta Hawks to anything further than an Eastern Conference Finals. So, but you gotta, most guys who are in the Hall of Fame have more postseason success than Tracy McGrady. That's a pretty safe statement. But here's another thing. I tweeted this a few weeks ago. Tracy McGrady is a 7-time All-Star. Okay. Every single 7-time All-Star in the history of the NBA is in the Hall of Fame or is a absolute lock for the Hall of Fame, with the exception of Jack Sikma. Jack Sikma is the only 7-time All-Star who is not in the Hall of Fame or who is not like absolutely headed for the Hall of Fame. Now, Joe Johnson is a 7-time All-Star. So that right there is something, and I'm gonna tell you something else. I'm gonna pull this up if I can remember where I saw it here. Because I'm gonna go through the list of guys who are who are 7-time All-Stars. So you'll see what I'm saying. Because you've heard me say, like, okay, everybody who is a 7-time All-Star is either in the Hall of Fame already, or they are pretty much a lock to go in, right? So let me see. I remember, how did I get this? This to come up? Here it is. I found it. All right, now I'm going to share this with you so you guys can see what I'm saying here. Might have to make this screen a little bit bigger here. All right, so All-Star selections. Okay, it got real big here. All right, let's sort it by NBA. All right, NBA. Oh, wait a minute. Why are we showing all this? All right, this is freaky. I'll shrink this one a little bit here. All right, so just look at the total because some of this is ABA, but most guys don't have both. All right, so 7-time All-Stars. Dave Bing is a Hall of Famer. Mel Daniels, all his All-Star appearances are in the ABA, but he's a Hall of Famer too. Louis Dampier is a Hall of Famer, but all 7 of his are in the ABA. Walt Frazier's a Hall of Famer. Harry Gallatin, an old New York Knick, is a Hall of Famer. He's on my Legends roster. Let's see, Grant Hill. Grant Hill is, I don't know. Grant Hill is, I don't know. That he's he might be the other guy. He might be the other guy. But Dan Issel's a Hall of Famer. Jerry Lucas is a Hall of Famer. Ed McCauley's a Hall of Famer. I believe Slater Martin, an old Laker, yes, he is a Hall of Famer. Let's see, Tracy McGrady, we talked about him. Dick McGuire is a Hall of Famer. Kevin McHale is a Hall of Famer. Alonzo Mourning, Scottie Pippen, Willis Reed, Jack Sikma is who I mentioned. Nate Thurman, I believe Chet Walker is a Hall of Famer. Yes, he is. JoJo White is a Hall of Famer. He just went in, though. It did take him a second. He just went in, but he is in. James Worthy is a Hall of Famer. So you see this. So 7-time All-Star generally is kind of like a good barometer for if you're going to be a Hall of Famer. So, I don't know what you guys, you guys might not even be able to see what I was just, you probably could see it before until I took it off. All right. That's like a fairly decent barometer for if you're a Hall of Famer. So that said, could you say Joe Johnson is? Now, Joe Johnson never led the league in scoring like Tracy McGrady did. So that's one thing off. But Joe Johnson had a little bit more playoff success, not a great deal more, but a little bit more than Tracy McGrady. So it's an interesting question. I would lean towards no, me personally, because when I think of Joe Johnson, I think of a really, really, really good player, but not quite like that. I don't know. That's just the way I see it. I think of a really good player, but not quite like that. You know what I'm saying? You dig what I mean when I'm saying that? You dig what I'm saying? All right. Next question comes from Chadster. I appreciate you coming back, Chadster. He says, when is the Cubs franchise in my league coming back on the channel? I am glad you asked, Chadster. And I mentioned this in the stream. The way I want to make sure that I finish all my series, because all of those series are going to be finished. The Cubs, the My League, the Road to the Show, all that's going to be finished. But I realized that before I start to show you guys any of my series, I believe like I need to have them finished. I need to have the gameplay finished and pretty much the editing finished. And basically, I'm just posting them up there and I'm holding the spoilers back. I'm not even telling y'all what happened. The reason why I want to do it that way is because I've run too many series that have ended up stopping and not completing. So I want to make sure that they get completed moving forward. So now what that means is going with that particular formula, you're seeing a little bit of a lull in those episodes or in those videos because I'm working on finishing them. Number one priority right now for me in regards to YouTube is making sure that I finish this roster so I can show you guys the roster and bam, all of that. Once that's done, which it'll be, I'm pretty still right on track for having it done by May 1st. Once that's done, then we're going to go head first into the Road to the Show series is first. I'm going to do that one first. And then it'll be me and Junior finishing up the My League. And then it'll be the Cubs series coming back around. Me and Junior's My League, I don't think that'll take that too long because we're playing only half games and stuff like that sometimes. So it should be cool. But that's the way it's going to go. But and then going forward, like I said, you're only going to see these joints when they're done. So that'll pretty much make it like any series you see me start, 100% is going to be finished because it already is finished. So I think that's a really good way for me to work because of how many different things that I have going on. So I think that's probably the best idea I've had. So we'll see how it works out. All right. Our next question comes from my main man, Pal Stirrer. And let me tell you what he said. I said that like it was like really big deal, and it is, but he says, your opinion on refs in Spurs versus Grizz and superstar calls, quote unquote, in general. I legit think the Grizzlies could have won that. Horrible refs, in my opinion. I don't know. I agree that there's definitely something called superstar calls. I thought that at one point in the game, I thought they were letting them both play, but I definitely did think there was a stretch there. I would say at the end of the third, beginning of the fourth quarter, where the Grizzlies were getting hit a lot going to the basket and they weren't getting the calls. Specifically, there were some drives by Zach Randolph, and I thought he got hit. There was a couple drives by Mike Conley that I thought he got hit, and he didn't get the call. But they are on the road. That was one thing. They were getting blown out early. They got blown out in the first game. They were getting blown out in this game. Referees are human. So they're seeing this, and they're watching how this is going, and your human nature is to kind of give the benefit of the doubt, so to speak, to the team that you believe is the better team. It's kind of like in boxing, right? This is something that you try your best to avoid. But in boxing, when you're watching it, when you're judging a fight in boxing, the tendency of a human being is to give a close round to the fighter that you think is the best fighter. Okay. So if in my personal opinion, I think that's what happened. I'll give you a perfect example of that. Manny Pacquiao's first fight against Timothy Bradley. Everybody knew that Manny Pacquiao was a better fighter than Timothy Bradley. You pretty much knew that within the first, 10 minutes of the fight. You knew. But there was a point in that fight where Pacquiao fought as if, hey, I've already proven I'm the best fighter here, so I'm just going to take rounds off. And I thought he took a lot of rounds off, and I thought those rounds were rounds that Timothy Bradley won, which was my reasoning for saying I scored the fight actually for Timothy Bradley. There was a couple other people in the building that scored it that way, but most people at home scored it for Pacquiao. But I think that was kind of because HBO tells you to score every round for Pacquiao, basically. But nonetheless, I digress. What I'm saying is, when you go, when there's a basketball game and there's contact and there's guys are driving to the basket, getting bumped, and all that sort of thing, I think there's a tendency to give the benefit of the doubt to the team that you think is the best. And the Spurs look to have proven themselves to be a better team. And I think that's why Memphis didn't get calls. Now, I think that David Fizdale did a good job, and he'll take his fine. Somebody will probably handle his fine for him, speaking up on behalf of his team, because he knows his team needs to be able to play physical in order to have any chance in this series. So I applaud him for doing what he did. I don't think ultimately it's going to matter in the long run. I just don't think that I think that buckets come too tough for Memphis against San Antonio for them to win this series. And and when San Antonio truly locks down on defense, like I thought the Spurs played bad defense in the latter part of the second quarter and the beginning of the third. I thought they had to be woken back up because they were playing as if they had this game won, had this series won. And Memphis didn't give up. And because Memphis didn't give up, then that they were able to take advantage of the Spurs' lackadaisical defense. So I think the Spurs are still going to win this series. Memphis may get a game, but I think the Spurs are still going to win. But I understand people who had an issue with the officiating for sure. All right, our next question comes from Brock Lesnar, and he said, "Where has this Bulls team been all year? They are playing like a team. You better believe it, Brock. The Bulls are playing well. They are playing well. I am not getting too caught up in this. I'm enjoying it as a Bulls fan, but I'm not getting too caught up in it because I know that this team is not good enough to I don't even think they're good enough to beat whoever comes out of the next round, which is more than likely going to be Washington. I don't think they can beat Washington. I believe that the Boston Celtics, I'm sorry to say this, Lur King, I think the Boston Celtics are the worst number one seed that I've ever seen. I mean, they are a well-coached team, and they got guys who play really hard. Isaiah Thomas is a dynamic little talent. He is and I say little talent because he's a small guy, but he is a humongous talent. He's just a smaller guy. But because he is the only guy on the team that can create his own offense, and he's 5'8", they become exceptionally they become much easier to stop in the postseason when the game slows down. Also, the fact that they cannot rebound. This is a dream matchup for the Bulls in the postseason. It really is. Now, I don't mean to say that the Bulls aren't playing well, because they are. They're playing the best basketball of their season right now, which is what you want, right? But I'm not getting carried away. I still believe that, as a matter of fact, this is actually kind of bad because the Bulls still need to rebuild. They still need to rebuild. And this success is actually a trick. It's a trick because people are going to get super excited about what's going on here. and they are going to be like riding high. Oh my God, just yes, they're really feeling themselves right now. But it doesn't change the fact that your best player is going to be 28 next year. You got another guy that's 35 years old and may or may not be back, probably will be back. And then you got a point guard that's 30, 31 who is playing out of his mind right now. Rajon Rondo's playing out of his mind. And I just don't know if the young players on your team have enough upside for this team to really become what it needs to become in the short period of time. Now, obviously, Zipser's stepping up, and Mirotic is, oh my God, he's so streaky. It just doesn't make any sense. And then Rolo's playing great in the middle. I still, man, I'm not a believer in this team in the next round. Now, I'll say this. I will say this. This, you know what will get me to change my tune? If the Bulls complete, because they haven't won this series yet. I believe at the beginning of the series, I said Celtics in 7 because I knew it was going to be a tough series. I knew the Bulls could compete with them. But if the Bulls actually win this series, if they beat Washington, or if they even push Washington to 7, because I believe Washington's going to beat Atlanta. They're up 2-0 now. If they push Washington to 7, then I will say, okay, you know what? Maybe they can get another year out of these guys. Maybe they can try to sign somebody. Maybe try to add a rookie that can have an impact, even though you get the 16th pick, and I don't know what you're going to get there. But try to add a rookie that can make an impact, and we'll see. Maybe then I'll say that. But as of right now, with what I expect to happen, I still think that they should trade Jimmy Butler on draft day to the Celtics for that number 3 pick. I do. But people hate that I say that. But hey, and some people say I'm not a real Bulls fan because I didn't want the Bulls to make the playoffs. Man, please. I've been rooting for the Bulls longer than whoever's probably saying that's been alive. Okay? So it's not that. I'm not interested in these moral victories. Oh, well, you got in the playoffs. Oh, well, you put a good upset. You knocked off the number 1 seed. You play to win the game. And in this instance, the game is a championship. Anything less than that is uncivilized. That's what I want. All right, our next question comes from also from Sim. Or this one comes from Simon Torbe Sunderland, and he asks, "What are your thoughts on the criticism Paul George has gotten for his comments concerning Game 1 and Game 2 at Cleveland?" Honestly, man, it just kind of depends on who you are, really. I mean, because if Kobe Bryant said the stuff that Paul George is saying, people were like, man, Kobe don't take no mess, boy. Kobe better come ball and go play with Kobe. Yeah. Whatever. Paul George is saying it, and somebody's saying, oh, he shouldn't be talking about his teammates like that or whatever. I didn't really think that he threw anybody under the bus, really. He said Lance Stevenson needed to kind of grow up a little bit. He needed to be better than he was acting with his body language and stuff. Okay. He said he was disappointed that CJ Miles took the shot at the end of Game 1, and he wished that he was the one. He wanted to be the one to take the shot. I didn't take it as like to me, it wasn't as bad as what like Jimmy and Dwayne Wade said about the Bulls earlier this season. I thought that was really bad. So I don't know. I'm a big time Paul George fan. I think he's an outstanding player. I think he is just phenomenal as a baller, as a leader, as a just even still an improving talent. I can't say I really have a lot of criticism for him. I think, the microscope is always more intense during the postseason. Every little thing you say, every little thing you do gets blown up. That's just the nature of the time, right? So I don't have an issue with it. I don't know exactly where all that stuff is coming from. Like I said, it's just what people do around this time of year. And we'll see. We'll see what goes on. I do think Paul George's days in Indiana are numbered in a major way, man. I think he's going to dip as soon as he gets a chance. He can't become a free agent before, I think it's the end of next season, or it might be the end of the 19th. I think it's the end of next season. So I definitely would be looking for the Pacers to be seriously entertaining a trade for him on draft day. So if the Celtics don't get Jimmy, I think there's a chance they will come hard at Paul George. I mean, I'm looking at something like that number 3 pick, if that's indeed what it is, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, and somebody else. I don't know, Jay Crowder or Avery Bradley, somebody else. And I think they say, here, let's go. And I'm telling you, the Celtics will lose some depth by losing those guys. Absolutely. But if you put Paul George on a team with Al Horford and Isaiah Thomas, and those guys learn how to play, man, I'm telling you, I don't know. If I'm the Celtics, I want to keep Marcus Smart because his energy and defense and intensity on both ends of the floor. He does need to improve the jump shot, but his intensity and energy is huge. And I mean, he is the perfect bench player. I know most of us thought he'd be more than that coming out of college, but he is a perfect bench player, you know. So I like him a lot. He has been one of the few bright spots for the Celtics, I think, in this Bulls series. He's playing his heart out, but just not enough. Not enough. So, yeah. Well, that's all I got for you guys tonight. I appreciate everybody who stayed up with me, got on, and took part in this episode of Mazique Speaks / Ask FP. Remember, Ask FP is not dead. That's what we just got through doing. If you got questions, shoot them to me. #AskFP. I will answer them on Wednesday night. So as you can see, I clear out the likes, which is how I, keep those questions on hand. And it's brand new. So starting now, you can start popping in with Ask FP questions that I will be answering next Wednesday. Now, normally the show goes on at 6 p.m. Central Time. But as I mentioned, I had some stuff I had to take care of, and I wasn't able to get to it until now. But I appreciate you watching. As always, God bless. Peace.